What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a look at a brand new Transformers TCG card. It seems like the Wave 3 War for Cybertron Siege spoilers are coming. Well, we're getting a nice little stream of them now, which is rather lovely. And the lovely Ken Nagel over on the official Facebook group has shown us Private Trailbreaker. And I'm going to say right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen, I like Private Trailbreaker. Now, if you've been watching my videos on the Transformers TCG, you probably know I am quite a big fan of Force Field. I like Force Field, and I like cards that can abuse Force Field. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there ain't no better way of abusing Force Field than Private Trailbreaker. Let's have a start off with looking at the basics, shall we? So looking at the stats, it is a 10 cost, which makes it fairly expensive. This is not a particularly cheap character. Good news is, Alpha 14 is above average. That is also extremely relevant. We'll get there in a moment. The attack of 4 or 5, it's fine, but we would generally expect a little bit more for a 10 cost. And the defense of 2 or 0 is frankly bad, although when we look at the skills in a moment, it's probably not really gonna matter. So looking at those skills then, starting off in bot mode, if you've got an armor, you have Brave. Now I've already mentioned Force Field, we're gonna be talking Force Field, but it doesn't need to be Force Field, it can be any armor whatsoever. The thing to remember is, you've got Brave. And you do have one higher attack in bot mode than you do have in alt mode. So you end up with a very interesting choice to make here. Do you stay in bot mode, knowing that you've got Brave, knowing that your opponent has to attack you if able, or do you rock in alt mode, where you can avoid being attacked, but you do have to sacrifice one attack to do so? And the answer, like so many in this game, is, what's the game state? What deck are you playing against? What are the circumstances? I need a little bit more information. But you've got that option, and Brave is fun, ladies and gentlemen. Brave is good. Now, Brave says you have to be attacked if able. That is to say, generally speaking, your opponent has to attack tapped characters. Unless none of them are tapped, in which case they get a free choice. So if there is a tapped character and then Trailbreaker's untapped, they don't attack Trailbreaker even if you've got an armor on, because you are untapped, ergo they are not able to attack you. Whereas if it's the beginning of the game, or you've just untapped or whatever, and all of your characters are untapped, then your opponent has a free choice, except they don't, because you got to go after Private Trailbreaker. There we go. Job's a good one. That's essentially how Brave works. And Brave can be a double-edged sword. Brave can be really good at protecting your other characters. So, I mean, an example I often use is Arcee. I think Arcee is a great character from Wave 1. It's a 5 cost, so it fits into a whole bunch of decks. Then you got attack equal to your peers. So if you can go boosting Arcee's attack here, you can be just piercing through and going nuts. Now, especially when you consider we had black icons revealed the other day, each one of which, when revealed, adds Pierce 1 to what you're doing. That actually is pretty gosh darned awesome. But Arcee's got 9 health and 1 defense. Arcee's not staying around for very long, unless you've got a character with Brave to save you. But the really good skill, the one we're really excited about here, is in alt mode. Before the game begins, you may put a force field from your deck onto this. You don't have to. Of course you don't have to. Be weird, because if you had to, then you'd have to play at least one force field in your deck, and then the game designers would be demanding that we play a particular card. That wouldn't be very fair. So as it stands at the moment, this is looking pretty tasty, ladies and gentlemen. This is looking pretty good. You start the game with a force field on. That's redonk. Now, I talked about the health of 14 here, and the health of 14 is, well, honestly, you could have a health of 13 here, but it needs to be 13 or higher. Because honestly, when I'm looking at Trailbreaker here, I'm not thinking about his health in terms of number of hit points. I'm thinking about his health in terms of number of force fields. And 14 is 3 force fields +2. Now, Force Field, for those of you that may have forgotten, guarantees that you do not take more than 4 damage from an attack. If you would take 5 or more damage, the damage is reduced to 4 and Force Field falls off. And I should mention here, we are getting an alternate art reprint of Force Field in this very set, which I believe, and please do correct me in the comment section if I'm mistaken, makes this the first alternate art reprint we've had. We did have some reprints in Wave 2 of staple Wave 1 cards, but I believe this is the first time we've had an alternate art reprint. Now, some people are going to be fairly salty about the fact that we're only getting 64 battle cards. The reason why we're getting 64 rather than the usual 81 is because we're getting these Battle Masters and Micro Masters, which are little cards. So we're basically getting a bunch of them, so we're getting fewer battle cards to make up for it. So, you know, you can be happy about that, you can be sad about that, ladies and gentlemen, that's up to you. But the fact of the matter is, this is still one of the best upgrades in the entire game, so, you know, feel free to be sad about it, but the fact of the matter is, it's happening, we're getting an alternate art reprint. So here, the ideal scenario, your opponent attacks you, Force Field falls off, you get a new one, they attack you, falls off. You get a new one, they attack you, falls off, and then they're basically 4-hit KOing you. And that's why we don't really care about the defense here. There is a caveat to that, we'll get there in a second. But generally speaking, Private Trailbreaker should have a Force Field on, making the defense irrelevant. And you will notice the alt mode artwork here, where it is in fact generating a force field. So you do hear the question sometimes, people asking, well, do the characters in the game feel like the real characters? And it's impossible to do that all the time. You can't always just make it work. But this seems like one of those characters where they've really done a good job of representing the character on the card. Now, the good news is you will begin the game with a force field attached by virtue of your alt mode skill. The bad news is there's plenty of ways to get rid of them nowadays. We had ramming speed in Wave 1, we've got vaporize in Wave 2, and there's plenty of other ways to get rid of them. Debilitating crystal, for instance. The point is, there are plenty of hate cards out there for this, and the fact of the matter is, there's going to be plenty of times where it's removed and there's nothing you can do and then you don't have a force field. If that happens, ladies and gentlemen, that happens. But the fact of the matter is, you're starting the game with a force field. So you're putting your opponent on an extremely small clock here, where you're basically saying, look, either you have one of these cards to get rid of my upgrade now, right away at the very beginning of the game, or else you're not going to be able to get a one-hit KO. And then hopefully they're not going to be able to get a 2-hit KO. We've all heard the stories, and to be honest, you've probably played with or played against, using Grimlock. I mean, there's plenty of others, but Grimlock's one of the ones we often hear about, where they get a whole bunch of stuff rolling like Dino Chomp, etc., and end up doing like 20 damage in one attack. That is possible. There are mechanisms in the game to go for bold and all of that and boost your attack and do giant attacks doing a ridiculous amount of damage, and force fields there to just be like, whoa, slow it on down, we cool, we got this. I really like this character. I mean, he's not the only one that can do this. Don't forget the Hunkered Down can grab a force field out of the scrap pile to attach to each of your tanks. In theory, you could be playing a free wide tank deck, use Hunkered Down, flip all of them into tank mode, and then get a force field onto each of them. We saw Jetfire in Wave 1 that can go ahead and recover a force field onto itself when it flips. These things can happen. But the fact of the matter is, this is still one of the best uses of force field we've seen so far, and the fact that you begin the game with it really does give you that luxury at the beginning of the game. And then, of course, you can flip it into bot mode and challenge your opponent. I'm in bot mode, I've got an armor attached, oh look, now I've got Brave. Do you have any way of getting rid of my force field? Because if not only am I forcing you to attack me, but I'm limiting you to 4 damage. This could be an awful lot of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in terms of designations here, it is a melee character, which means you have both power sword and body armor that you can use, which, you know, they're quite good, giving you bold free and tough free. Really, I think body armor's kind of superfluous here, because you should be using force field. It's kind of where the character comes from. But you could give yourself a body armor, and then that would incidentally activate your brave as well. I think probably stick with a force field and go for a power sword here. You are also a truck in alt mode. It's a nice new trick for trucks, but by the same token, trucks has not had the best support of everything. Cargo trailer's quite nice for boosting your attack, and I suppose you got team up tactics. And actually, let's stop on team up tactics for a minute, because team up tactics will repair 2 damage, and if you can heal 3 damage, that's 1 more force field. So essentially 3 force fields will leave you on 2 health remaining. But then if you play team up tactics, you go to 4 health, which means that even with a force field, you'll still go down. But if you can play a team up tactics and heal 1 more health here, that actually goes from 3 force fields and a 4-hit KO to 4 force fields and a 5-hit KO. This is an extremely interesting character, and one that I am very excited to go and have a play with when Wave 3 releases. But I would very much like to know what you think about it. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at @Wossy, where we talk about Transformers and a bunch of other games. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.